Alright, so we start with the Dark Urge waking up on a Mind Flayer ship with no memory of his past, only knowing that the Mind Flayers put a tadpole in his head, and he has strange dark urges to do violent acts. But he fights them and escapes the ship alongside Shadowheart and Lysel, who explains that they'll turn into Mind Flayers if they don't remove the tadpoles from their heads. So after the ship crashes, the gang goes to a local druid's grove to find a healer, but are joined by others that were infected, including Asterion, a vampire wanting revenge against his master, Gale, a wizard trying to redeem himself to his goddess, Will, a hero of Baldur's Gate stuck in a contract with a demon, and Karlach, a tiefling that escaped the hells with an engine for a heart. Together, the gang helps the grove's refugee tieflings get on their way to Baldur's Gate by clearing the local goblin hideout, where they save the druid grove's leader Paulson, who tells them that the only way to remove the tadpole is to get to the Moonrise Towers. And then at the goblin camp, we learn of the Absolute, who's this goddess that the goblins are all following for some reason, and this Absolute has these three chosen that we'll see later on that are basically causing this like war. And there's also the Absolutes Chosen, which are all these other people that have the tadpoles in them that aren't being transformed into Mind Flayers, but they're working for the Absolute, and we're not, and we'll explain later in like the Q&A. Before going there, let's cover the cast. Asterion is pretty simple. He wants to find his old master and finally free himself from his grasp because he's a vampire spawn. Will is trying to get out of his pact with Zariel after saving the city in the past, while also being turned into a demon himself after refusing to follow a request to kill Karlach by Zariel. Karlach is just trying to get rid of her engine heart so she can finally live after fighting in the hells for 10 years against her will. Lysel is searching for the lost prince Orpheus after learning that her goddess has been lying to her people all along. Shadowheart is a follower of Shar that lost her memories and plans to become a justiciar of Shar to gain them back. And our guy Dirge is trying to discover who he was in the past and get rid of these urges before he hurts someone close to him. There's also Jurgle, or no, his name is Withers. He's this old skeleton guy that resurrects. It's pretty confirmed he's Jurgle, the old dead god, but definitely he's not. There's also this guardian in our dreams that keeps telling us that they're the reason we haven't transformed into Mind Flayers and that we need to use our Mind Flayer powers to get stronger to beat the Absolute. But I'm not going to do that. Alright, so they get to the new region where they meet some survivors held up in Last Light Inn, a tavern safe from the Shadow Curse because of a priestess, Isabel, constantly keeping a shield up around them. The survivors are also led by Jaheira, a companion from the last game, which is, that's pretty neat. We also find the tiefling refugees here. They were forced to seek the inn after getting attacked by Absolute cultists. And the Absolute is basically this goddess that's somewhat taking over everywhere. We don't know why. The goblins are starting to follow her. As the group talks to Isabel, Marcus shows up, announcing that his boss at Moonrise Towers, Ketheric, wants Isabel alive. The gang helps save Isabel and decides to head to the towers to confront Ketheric and the Absolute. But Jaheira tells them that Ketheric is actually immortal somehow, so it's like, oh well, we'll figure it out. Before going to Moonrise, we help Halsin cure the Shadow Curse by saving the guardian of the region, Thaniel, but we'll need to kill Ketheric to actually get rid of it. The gang is able to reach Ketheric, and after undergoing the trials of Shar, they find the source of Ketheric's powers, the Night Song, the immortal daughter of Selûne, they say it a lot, held prisoner by Ketheric's people. Also the target Shadowheart must kill for Shar to become a justiciar. Shadowheart then decides that she cares more about Dirge than her goddess and throws the spear away, releasing the Night Song, who gains her powers back and reveals that Shadowheart was actually a follower of Selûne, I don't know, that was kidnapped and brainwashed. Shadowheart's parents are also still alive and being held captive by Shar's people. The Night Song then grabs her sword and heads to Ketheric. Disgruntled, the gang follows suit, joined by Jaheira as they fight through the towers to Ketheric. But before they can beat him, he retreats with the Night Song. The gang then chases him down through a strange area where they discover that the Absolute is actually an Elder Brain being controlled by the Dead Three's followers, Gortash, follower Bane, Orin, follower Ball, and Ketheric, follower Merkel. The two others leave for Baldur's Gate with the Absolute and Will's father, now with a tadpole inside of him, gross, while we fight Ketheric. During the fight, we learn that Isabel was Ketheric's daughter that was killed but brought back by Merkel, which caused Ketheric to join the cause, which is, cool backstory. After beating Ketheric, the Shadow Curse falls and the gang rushes to the city. The group reaches the city but camps for the night, where they discover that the Dream Guardian is actually a Mind Flayer called the Emperor, who is broken free of the Absolute and has been using the powers of Orpheus through the artifact to keep us from turning. The gang wakes up the next morning and goes into the city, where they discover the Steel Watch policing the streets and witness Gortash get crowned before he reveals that Dirge was a part of the original three, and he was replaced by Orin after she experimented on him. So the gang leaves Gortash and heads straight to the sewers where they confront Orin. learning that Dirge is actually her brother, another Ball spawn, and it's their destiny to duel. Dirge is able to kill Orin and denies to take Ball's power, so he's killed and reborn with Wither's power, now without the urges, essentially free from his past. So before going into Gortash, let's cover the gang stories because it's all wrapped up here. Shadowheart is able to finally break free of Char, but has to let her parents die in peace. Asterion kills his old master and frees his fellow spawns. Gale gets his bomb removed, yeah, he had a bomb inside of him, and realizes his ambition is way too much for a mortal. Jaheira finds and saves Minsk. Halsin saves an old friend and can move on. And Will re-ups his pact with Zariel in order to save his father, but decides to be the Blade of Avernus now instead of the Blade of Sword Coast. We also learn that the Emperor was once Balduran, which was the hero that found Baldur's Gate, but killed his friend after deciding he wanted to stay as a mind flayer. So now resolute, the gang heads back to Gortash, taking him out and gathering all the stones, which is what they were using to control the Elder Brain. Each of the followers had one, when the Absolute begins to rise, now that she's not under control with the stones. The gang makes it to her, but she reveals that this was her plan all along, and everybody played their part for her. She basically convinced all the followers that they were in control when actually she was doing this the whole time to get all the power she needed, which was from the stones, which are the only things that could stop her, yada yada. So the gang's too weak to usurp her with the stones, but the Emperor saves us and brings us back to the astral plane as the Absolute begins destroying Baldur's Gate. In the astral plane, the gang decides to save Orpheus, which causes the Emperor to betray us and join the Absolute, showing that he had just always wanted the power and he was actually just a crazy Mind Flayer guy. With Orpheus freed, he undergoes the Mind Flayer transformation to get the power needed to stop the Absolute. Together, the gang travels back to the city where we all meet the allies we met along the way and launch an offensive on the Absolute, where we're finally able to kill the Brain, sending a mental wave, killing all the tadpoles and all of the gang's heads, everybody that was controlled at one point by the Absolute, and stopping all the Mind Flayers long enough for the city to defend themselves and kill them all away. So with the war finally won, Lyzel takes up Orpheus's call to rebel and save her people from their goddess. Karlach is forced to go back to Avernus before she blows up, and Will goes with her to make sure that she won't be forced to fight again. Gale takes the crown of the Absolute to Mystra, his goddess, to basically keep safe, and he stays at her side once again. Asterion is forced back to the shadows, going to live in the Underdark with all the other freed spawns, and Shadowheart and Dirge start their new lives together, living on the land with lots of animals and flowers, completely far away from their dark past. But before all that, the gang heads back to the Elfsong Tavern in Baldur's Gate for just one last celebration. Alright, let's do a bit of Q&A. So who was the Absolute? The Absolute is somebody we learned about at the Goblin Camp. The Goblins started worshipping this new goddess, that's why they were attacking the Tieflings. They were trying to look for some strange artifact. We'll get into that in a minute. They thought that we were a part of the Absolute's Chosen because we have tadpoles in our heads that let us compel somebody to do our bidding. So who are the Absolute's Chosen? The Absolute's Chosen are the other people with tadpoles in their heads that the Absolute controls to do her bidding. You meet a few of them along the way. You would have been one of them, but the Emperor found Orpheus and began controlling him in the astral plane, or basically just keeping him imprisoned, which kept you sane with his powers by using the artifact Shadowheart was carrying around. Why did Char want that artifact? So Char basically got mad at the Absolute for taking potential recruits, so she wanted to take the artifact to use against her. Who was Orpheus? Orpheus was the long-lost prince of the Githyanki. He was vilified by the Githyanki goddess, but you learn in the Kresh path, when the goddess lies about being able to protect Lyzel from the tadpole, that Orpheus is actually the good guy, and the only one that can basically usurp the goddess from her position with his incredible powers. So what was up with the astral plane? I have no idea. I think they changed it instead of doing the worm basically messing with you as like a dream lover from the early access of the game. But essentially the Emperor was under the Absolute's powers and sent to the astral plane, where he was able to break free from her powers when he found Orpheus. So he kept him imprisoned and seeks you out as an ally. Why did he choose the group that we play as? I don't really remember. Maybe somebody can remind me. I'm sure it was talked about, I just don't remember it. But either way, it turned out that the Elder Brain set everything up from the start, which was honestly a really cool twist. I did not expect that. Yo, if you liked the video, or honestly even if you didn't, it'd be cool if you liked it. Also, if you want more videos like this in the future, you can subscribe down below. Alright, well I should go.